Hey, for Monday, June 8th, 2020, this is the Pro and the Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. So, welcome to the show. Don't know how often in the future someone's going to be watching these, but making them anyway. We'll see. I think only a handful of people are seeing them these days, but that may grow someday, or maybe not. It's okay either way. So the purpose of the show, trying to make sure that we're being better citizens. And by being better citizens, in these days especially, we have to ferret out the truth a lot more than we used to have to do. So all the different information streams that can come to you, and the people that are providing them, pretty smart. They'll send you information that they think you want to see, and to try to continue to build up or back up this preconceived notions that they want to support, and mostly try to make you emotional so they can control you. And that's one thing about taking in the whole of the information, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against, is when you start at least taking the time to say, okay, there are multiple sides to this, then a lot of the emotion drains away and you can actually just talk about the issues. So today's show is called Testing. And it harkens to the pandemic that we're still step by step going through. I haven't talked about the pandemic for a little while, so where we're at now, here in a little over a week into June, is we've clamped down. I think people have mostly. I don't know. I hear different numbers, but I think roughly 3/4 of the population, at least, are being fairly good about social distancing and wearing masks in public, and taking this threat that this virus can be infectious even for someone that has no symptoms, and that's actually a pretty common thing, unfortunately or fortunately. So the good news is a fair number of us will get this virus and will not have very serious consequences of having it. The problem is that for a significant portion of us, and I keep seeing, every time I do calculations and look at the numbers, I keep seeing something on the order of 5%. So about 1 in 20 of us are going to get very, very seriously ill and die, basically, something on that order of magnitude. And that's a lot. That's a lot of people. If you think about 8 billion people on the planet, and 5% of them get really, really, really ill, and then a significant fraction of those that get really, really, really ill actually die. That's going to be just millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people that will die around the planet if we're not careful. And so what we did is, unfortunately, we weren't that well prepared, especially not prepared in strategy or logic around this. So, there's 3 things that you can do, and I spoke about this before in previous shows, but I'll speak about it again. So there's 3 things that you can do to really overcome a brand new virus. Okay, a virus that is serious, and basically there's no immunity in the world population, which is going to happen from time to time. It's just going to happen. So there's 3 things. So one is you can have treatments, effective treatments for it. So when, in this particular case, it's now a discussion about whether it's a blood disease and or respiratory disease, but in any case, you have some kind of effective thing that people, especially if they start getting seriously ill, you give them this treatment and they recover. So that's great. The problem is it takes a long time to get that. And other viruses like the common cold, we've never really got there. We have a few things that will treat some of the symptoms, but as far as curing the common cold, we don't have it. And, some future virus that's going to be, long in coming, if ever coming. And then the other thing that you can have is a vaccine, so you can prevent people from getting it. Well, again, you have to be careful about vaccines because they have to be effective, and they also have to be safe. And so if you start giving, because again, we're going to treat 8 billion people, if you start giving them a vaccine that isn't appropriate, that isn't either safe or effective, then millions and millions of people are still going to hurt and be, killed or die or whatever, or seriously ill. So that leaves testing. Testing is something that, for all of these things, we have the technologies around RNA and viral proteins and all this kind of stuff, so we can test immediately when one of these things comes to fruition. We can start testing right away, in small quantities. And the big problem is that we didn't, even though that was the only thing that we could do. And of course, if you can test, then you can say, okay, let's just say hypothetically, we could test all 340 roughly million Americans in a day. Well, then we'd know exactly who had or who did not have the virus, and we could say, okay, those that have it, you need to go, sequester yourselves in isolation and stay there for several days, and then we'll keep testing you, and eventually when you don't have it anymore, you're free to do whatever. And the rest, everything else, the whole world keeps going along with this minor perturbation. Now, that would be expensive. That you're talking about, billions of dollars. It would be like billions of dollars over the course of the year. I don't know, $10 billion, $50 billion, $100 billion. But compared to the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that we're spending because we didn't have that, so we had to shut down the economy and go through all this. So hopefully, if there's one thing that we've learned from this pandemic, is that we need to get and maintain a very, very high capacity for testing for these kinds of things, various viruses or basically these potential things that would lead us to very serious illness on a large scale. We need to have a massive capacity to test. And if we are starting into a pandemic and we're testing and we're finding out that the already massive capacity that we have is insufficient, well, then we're going to have to rapidly spend some billions to expand that testing so that we can get to a place where we know who has the serious illnesses and who don't, and or who doesn't. Sorry, who does and who doesn't, and who doesn't, and then we're in a fairly good way. We would end up with small percentages of the population that would have to sit at home or sit in isolation for some period of time before they can come back into the normal stream of the economy and society. So testing. And there's, if you want to point at one of the most epic failures of our current president, is that he ignored the virus and then started touting, because he can never admit that he isn't prepared, that he isn't perfect. Oh, we got all the testing we'd ever want, which was totally and completely incorrect. And even to this day, it's 3 or 4 months into this, we have a lot more testing, but still not anywhere near what we would need or want to really freely open up this economy. So we're going to end up with an ongoing economic issue and a serious recession, if not a full-fledged depression, because we still have not spent the billions of dollars needed to put the testing capacity in place to be able to say, you have COVID-19, you do not, you do, you do not, you do not, you do not, you do. And until we're there, we're going to suffer mightily. The economy is going to suffer mightily, and our current president just doesn't have the vision to understand that, doesn't have the mental capacity to do it. All right, so for Monday, June 8th, 2020, this has been the Pro and Con Show. My name is Michael James Dodd. I've been your host, and until the next show, bye for now.